What is up, everyone? I'm coming in from Brisbane this week. I'm up in Queensland visiting my folks-in-law, I suppose, and I'm at their place. So we don't have the usual equipment here. We don't have the usual setup, but I'm here nonetheless, and keen to chat to you all about Megadeth's new album. Dan's already here. Good to see you, Dan. Thanks, bro. Thanks for your opinions. Average album, couple good songs. Other than that, other than the first single, nothing great. Yeah, that's what we're here to discuss tonight, honestly. I'm keen to hear everyone's thoughts. The album, The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead came out on Friday on my birthday. And, I bought myself a copy for my birthday, and I've been listening to it on the weekend and today, and I've been making a few notes about my thoughts on the album and where I think it did well, where I think it did not so well, and of course, what it sort of means for the future, I think, of metal and for thrash metal, especially coming into 2020 and the big four and where they're at and things like that. So keen to have a bit of a discussion tonight about the album and what it all means. So I mean, initially there's been a bit of a mixed reaction online. Some people are saying it's awesome and it's one of their best modern albums. Other people are saying it's terrible and don't give it any time at all. It's interesting that it's been so polarizing. A lot of the time, like with some of Megadeth's later releases, and certainly some of the stuff in the 90s, like it's pretty universally just everyone just thinks they're terrible. Um, Apart from the odd song here or there, but this album seems to be getting a mixed reaction online. Like a lot of people are backing it, and I guess I'm to some extent I'm one of those people that I think the album was pretty decent. Um, it's definitely not their best work, definitely not in their top like 5 albums of all time or anything like that, but pretty decent in my opinion. Um, as I said, I'll start with some general notes. As I said, I made some notes about it. But if you guys are joining me tonight at any stage on Twitch or YouTube, feel free to jump in and share your opinions too, because honestly, I'd just like to hear. I'd like to hear what everyone thinks about it. As I said, it's been quite polarizing online, and yeah. So generally speaking, I think the second half of the album was better than the first half. Uh, there were some moments on the album that were quite good and quite Megadeth and quite also progressive. Whereas there was a lot of also moments that were quite lacking, I thought, and just lacked a bit of passion and the energy that you normally get from some of these bigger metal bands. That being said, like what big four band has released a solid album post 2000 that everyone is just all about, like, or even post mid 90s. Honestly, like a lot of the big four, obviously they peaked in the 80s, and peaked in the very early 90s, and since then they've all been trying to recreate that. I don't know, Dan. Do you have an example of a modern thrash album that you thought was right up there? Like maybe Slayer's Repentless, or something new from Anthrax or Metallica, Megadeth. I'm not sure which post 2000s album would you put up there is with a high rating. Like for me personally, like I really liked Endgame, Megadeth's 2008 2009 I think it was that it came out. Endgame was a solid album. I put that in Megadeth's top five, honestly, with their early stuff, Countdown, Euthanasia. Endgame's right up there as far as I'm concerned. I really rate Death Magnetic too from Metallica. Slayer, Slayer's hit and miss for me. Like a lot of Slayer fans will say Repentless was amazing. Um, I thought it was a very Slayer album. It sounded exactly like you'd expect it to, but it also sounded like it was just Slayer repeating what they've already done before. So in that sense, uh, I wouldn't put Repentless in Slayer's top 5 albums, for example. Anthrax has had a few good releases, like Worship Music, and things like that. So I think Anthrax is one of those bands that seem to still be going okay, if we're just talking Big Four. Um, and then, but this Megadeth album, like I said, it's not in their top five, but I think it's a out of all the other Big Four bands doing releases lately, I think this is pretty solid. Yeah. For example, Hardwired to Self Destruct. I didn't rate that very highly, honestly. I know a lot of people did. A lot of people thought it was a throwback to the '80s sound of Metallica, but I liked a couple of songs of it. But for me, Death Magnetic is better than Hardwired. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but I don't know. What do you think, Dan? What do you think, man? So that's some general sort of first reactions to this Megadeth album. I listened to it the whole way through the first time, without sort of taking note of individual songs or individual parts, and just absorbed the album as a lot of people do. And I definitely felt it as it sort of went upwards throughout the 14 songs. It's a long album. It's a big album, and I don't think it needed to be that long. I think they could have gotten away with 9, maybe 10 songs. Some of them just didn't need to be there. I felt, and didn't add anything to the sound, to the album, to the experience. So in that sense, I think there's definitely some not room for removing songs, but I think there was too much on there unnecessarily. Um, but that's how it is. What do we got here? So I guess what I'm saying with that is though, if you did listen to a few songs off the album, and you sort of started at the beginning, and then after 3 songs decided, you know what, this is crap. I'm not going to waste my time. Um, I would urge you to listen to the album in reverse, perhaps, or just to pick sort of halfway through the album and start listening from there, because I definitely thought the second half was better. Dan is just tuning in there. So Slayer's Christ Illusion, Megadeth's 13 at Endgame, and United Abominations. Nice. And then Hardwired, yeah, like same thing. 3 to 4 songs just not needed on Hardwired. I would agree with that, man. I would agree with that. And that's the thing. I think a lot of the big fours later releases, they're trying to make them so big and epic and uh, deliver like a massive slab of amazing metal. But sometimes you just need to go back to simplicity and just if you've got 14 songs, just pick the best 9. Like save some, save the other 5. Like you don't have to release everything. And that being said, I'm sure they have 35 songs written for the album and have to narrow it down to 14. I'm not claiming to know the ins and outs of the process that these guys go through, but certainly as the fan, as the person listening to it and receiving the album, I'm listening to it thinking, you know what, this song like didn't do anything for me. It just doesn't need to be there. And that applies to not just this Megadeth album that we're talking about, but a whole bunch of them. Uh, yeah. So that's kind of where I see this album in particular, but also just the Big Four in general. A lot of the time, I mean, but in saying that, I'm just thinking out loud here, but in saying that, you go back to some of the old 80s albums from these bands, there were songs on there that didn't need to be on there as well. So maybe that's just part of the process. Maybe not every album needs to just be banger after banger and go from start to finish. The one upside, I suppose, of being back in the 80s when you made albums is you were limited for time. The record disc, the 12-inch, could only hold, what was it, like 45 minutes of music or something like that. So that forced you to cut, I suppose. It forced you to pick your best 45 minutes. And as Dan says there, you don't need to do 60 plus minutes. 40 to 50 is enough. And I mean, the length of an album for the longest time was limited by the format, by the fact that it had to go on a vinyl disc. Whereas now we have digital options. You could release a 2 hour long album if you wanted to, but mm, yeah, fair point. Some of those old ones only have one song, but I think the format, definitely moving into a digital format, it allows people to release as much as they would like to, and maybe that's not always a good thing. Maybe too much freedom sometimes can mean that we're releasing music that just doesn't need to be out there. Like your best 9 songs is enough. We don't need 15. You know. Again, this is just my opinions. And I'd love to hear what you guys think. But has there been an album that's like 60 minutes plus that you've just gone, this is amazing, and every song needs to be there? I don't know. I can't think of an example personally, but yeah. One thing I'd like to do tonight, Dan, and other people that are watching is just go through each track and sort of give a bit of a thought on what I thought of each song and some of the moments. Share with you guys some of the moments that I really enjoyed on the album. Because as I said, I think there were quite a few just little moments, little pieces, little lyrics, little riffs, things like that. That I thought, you know what, this is going in the right direction, and I get excited uh, about it, and I'm like, yeah, cool. This is the Megadeth that we know and love. But then obviously those moments didn't last for the entire album. But yeah. So anyway, that being said, I think we should kick it off with the first song. Um, So as I said, the album's got 14 tracks, including 2 bonus songs, which are covers. I'm going to go through all of them because I think the covers were important addition. Obviously, the title track kicking off "The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead." Uh, my opinion on that first song was that I was listening to it. It started solid. It started like a typical Megadeth album would start, where you're kind of like building up, building in, and it's sort of going. You know what? This is starting to go somewhere. I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited. Uh, but I kind of was left with that. Uh, what's the word? Anticipation. Left with that anticipation for the entire song. It was as if it was trying to build up, but then it just never did. And I was sitting there waiting for the whole song, just going like, all right, it's gonna kick in now. All right, it's gonna kick in now. It's gonna kick in now. And it just didn't. It just sort of stayed in that introductory phase throughout the entire song. I never ramped up. You know, a lot of bands start their albums with orchestral pieces or softer intro tracks, so to speak, that might be a minute or two long, and then it kicks into the full pelting thrash metal. But I think Megadeth tried to start with a slower, to ease into it with this track. But as I said, for me, it just didn't pick up. It just didn't take off the way I thought it should have. Uh, yeah, it was just a weak song in my opinion. It started out weak, which might have been the intention to build up into something strong, but it just never did, and it just stayed as a weak track. Yeah, good point, Dan, about Hysteria. Hysteria is one of those hour-long albums that was just bangers start to finish. Uh, mm, mm, good addition there. Yeah, start was cool, felt nothing. That's how I saw it. The solos, I'd like to share in particular the solos on the title track. Very, very uninspired in my opinion, and that's coming from someone who's not an amazing guitar player. I don't class myself as a shred lord or anything like that, but certainly Kiko has the chops. Dave has the chops to make some amazing solos, and I thought the solos in the title track were very. I've been playing guitar for 3 years, kind of solos. They were very simple, well executed. Definitely, like you could hear that the guys knew how to play guitar. But I think the first solo had something like 20 notes in the entire solo. It was very stripped back. It was very just playing the scale, just bending the same notes. Uh, and while that can be used for some emotional impact sometimes in solos, I don't know. It just felt really uninspired and lazy for me in the context of the song. It doesn't do anything for me. And I was like thinking, listening to the song, like obviously we know Kiko could shred. Uh, he does have a very Marty style melodic soloing playing, and that was evident on Dystopia. And certainly the stuff we see live from Kiko, he can play, and he can play in the same vein as Marty Friedman, putting a lot of soul and emotion and melody into his solos. So I came into this album expecting a lot of that, and I mean the whole album. There were moments where there were some good solos, which I'll share with you guys later when we get to those songs. But this first song, I was once that first solo kicked in, I'm like, oh, here we go. Strap yourself in, and it just never took off. It was very, as I said, it just felt really simple and lazy. Um, as I said, well executed, but just uninspired. Um, I thought it was very unlike Megadeth to open with a song like that. To open with a song that doesn't punch your face in. You look back at pretty much all their albums, even the less great albums, they always start with a strong song. Even when the album as a whole was not a good album, the stronger songs on that album always at the beginning and the end. Megadeth seems to have a bit of a, I wouldn't say it's a formula, but certainly their albums always sort of peak, start and finish, and have this, maybe it's a dip, obviously even their strong albums, like something like Rust in Peace, starting with Holy Wars and then finishing with Rust in Peace Polaris, just the absolute belters of tracks, and then the rest of the album's amazing too, but it sort of, has that little dip in energy in the middle. Maybe the slower songs are in the middle, maybe the less like hit single type songs are in the middle of the albums. They always seem to start and finish strongly. And this album, I don't feel like they did that. They started with a weak song, and I was after hearing that, knowing what Megadeth does with their sort of energy throughout the songs and crescendoing at the end. I was listening to after that first song, and I thought, wow, if that's their strong song, this is going to be a waste of time. But luckily that wasn't the case. The stronger songs were yet to come. Like Dan said, the start was cool and just felt nothing. It just didn't take off for me as much as I thought it would. That being said, the second track sort of did. The second track kicked into some pretty cool riffs. It's sounding a bit more thrash metal, a bit more Megadeth of old. Uh, but what I will say about that second song is, second track, by the way, for reference, was Life in Hell. I thought the lyrics were a bit basic. I thought the lyrics were a little, much like the title track of Hardwired to Self-Destruct, which had some mint riffs. I thought the lyrics were very, um, they were the draft lyrics, and they just went with them rather than perfecting the wording and perfecting uh, the prose, let's say. Um, using some more clever and colorful language rather than just dumbing it down like it's almost like a social media language. Perhaps that's what's going on. I don't know. Maybe we're all getting a bit sillier with word use these days. Um, what are we saying here? So Dan said, "I wonder if this album got stripped back because Dave Jr. got fired and Dave Sr. just couldn't have his writing credits on it. Got delayed, rushed rewrites." That's absolutely a fair point, Dan. I think, as we all know, Dave Jr. got fired from the band midway through working on this album, and they took his bass parts out of it and rewrote it. So potentially that's it, man. Maybe Ellefson had parts of these songs that were his contribution, and those parts had to get taken out and rewritten, and just never sort of caught up. I'm not sure. But hey, Brendan, how you doing, bro? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. We're just discussing the opening tracks, I suppose, at the moment of the Megadeth album. Have you listened to it? And if you have, what was your overall feel, man? I'd love to hear. But yeah, that's a really good point, Dan. Like potentially, Ellefson's stuff got taken out of the song, and it just never, you know, you, I would personally, as a musician, I would find it hard to. You've written a song, and then you have to take chunks out of that song because somebody else wrote them, and then you have to kind of put new chunks in and make it still sound good. It's almost like you're Frankensteining a song, and I don't think it would be very hard to make a good song that way. Is my initial opinion to that. So yeah, maybe that's a good point, man. Maybe that's a good point. But the second song, Life in Hell, as I said, the lyrics were a bit basic. The riffs were cool, but it just sounded like the energy was in second gear. We definitely got out of first gear from the title track into second gear, but we were just stuck in second gear for that whole song. Uh, and I feel like, that being said, there was a few tracks on this album that just sounded like a Megadeth cover band trying to write songs in the vein of Megadeth. It's like if you and me, and we've got a bunch of local musicians. We're like, yeah, let's make a band. We're all massive Megadeth fans. We're gonna make our own original band. We're gonna write songs that sound just like Megadeth. And then we did. Um, and these were those songs. They're like a local band's version of a Megadeth song. Is how I felt, and I've got some theories as to why that might be, which I'd like to discuss a little bit later as well. Uh, Brendan's picked up a vinyl copy. Only heard the singles so far, and you like those. Yeah, that was my initial reaction too, man. I like the singles. Um, we'll be back, and what was the other one? The Soldier On. Those were good singles, man. I did enjoy those too. So track 2 is Life in Hell, and I thought that it just sounded like a Megadeth cover band trying to sound like Megadeth. It just didn't have the usual passion that Dave has, the anger, the aggression, the whatever it is that he's trying to communicate, the feeling just wasn't there. It was like it just felt like they were trying to be Megadeth, you know? Me and James equals yeah. I don't know. It just yeah. That's how I saw it. And I think that's true for the first half of the album. Honestly, I feel like the first half of the album, Megadeth was trying too hard to be Megadeth. In that they were trying too hard to sound like their old albums. We need to recreate this. We need to recreate that. Um, are you in names there? Sorry, Dan. They were trying too hard to recreate their old sound and their old riffs and their old energies, but they weren't feeling it. They weren't writing from in here, and their feelings, their anger, or whatever they're feeling these days. They weren't using that. They were just trying to recreate a sound, which, like I've spoken about in the past, when I'm working on my new stuff now, I'm not trying to sound like Wartooth again. I'm not trying to recreate an energy that I had 5 years ago. I'm in a new energy space now. I feel different things that I did 5 years ago. So that's where I need to write from in order for the music to sound authentic and passionate. And I just think that Megadeth was, and it's a different situation for them. They're obviously tied to record labels. They got fans, millions of fans around the world that want to hear Megadeth sound like Megadeth. Um, and a lot of other things like that. And like Slayer is the same. Slayer became a victim of that because Slayer is Slayer, and everyone expects them to sound like Slayer, so they can't change their sound because everyone's going to be disappointed, right? They're going to be like, "This is not Slayer. This is just something different," But as individuals, as the artist, you can't sort of put yourself in a box like that. It's just not authentic, I suppose, because you're not the same person. You can't stay the same person for your entire life with the same feelings, the same attitudes. We as humans evolve, so your sound kind of has to evolve if you're being true to yourself, which is the challenge, I suppose, for big bands that become businesses and things like that, because they get stuck in a box because the fans want to hear certain things. And it's only the few brave bands that evolve, and I guess Metallica has evolved their sound a lot more than some of these other bands. And a lot of people criticize them for it because they didn't like the load reload era, they didn't like the Saint Anger, they didn't like the new stuff. But what I do appreciate and respect about that band is that they've been true to themselves. They make music first and foremost for themselves, and the sound evolves. And some fans will dig it, some fans won't, and the new fans will dig it, and old fans won't. But at least as an artist, they're evolving. They're being true to themselves, and they're releasing. Um, yeah, exactly as Dan said there. They do what they want, and that's something that I think deserves a lot of respect and admiration, even if you personally don't like that music. If you like the old stuff and you don't like the new stuff, just keep listening to the old stuff. Nobody's saying you have to like the new stuff. But I think as an artist, definitely from an artist's perspective, I feel like you have to evolve your music to suit your life as it evolves too. So, but I don't think Megadeth did that in the first half of this album, and I think the epitome of that is the third track, Night Stalkers, which to me, I don't know what you guys thought of Night Stalkers, which is one of their Hey Jordan, how you doing, man? Thank you for joining the chat, man. Hey, I'm not stealing your words, Dan. I'm sharing your words. How about that? Jordan, you do graphic design, mate. We definitely have to chat, my man. I'll chat to you after the stream. But are you a Megadeth fan, Jordan? I'd love to hear if you are, and if you've heard the new album, what do you think of it, man? That's what we're chatting about tonight. So, but yeah, Night Stalkers. I don't know if you guys like that single. Personally, I thought that as I was discussing about Megadeth trying to sound like old Megadeth, I thought Night Stalkers was, let's take a song of Rust in Peace, let's take some Countdown, some Euthanasia, and some of the So Far So Good So What, and just fucking riff salad sandwich that motherfucker together. We're just gonna take some old riffs, rewrite them slightly so they're new, and just mash them all together and make a fucking, what was it in the end, like 7 minute song. Um, yeah, 7 minute song, and it just sounded like it was just riff salad of, like I said about the Megadeth cover band thing, is what's the next Megadeth riff we want to change and rip off? What's the next Megadeth riff we want to rip off? And just shove them one after the other into a 7 minute song and call it a new song. It didn't have a flow. It didn't have feeling. It didn't have um, a point almost. It was just riffs after riffs. The song evolved too much to grab me. Honestly, that's my opinion on Night Stalkers. But it was one of their singles. I thought that was an interesting choice. That they used that as one of their singles. Like a 7 minute song as a single is a brave decision. It's not an impossible one. Certainly bands have done it in the past. Um, but I just don't think this was the song to do it with. Yeah. It did feature Ice-T on vocals. He had a bit of a rap speech thing in the middle, which was pretty cool. And they did use a few guests on this album, which I thought was quite interesting. I'll talk about that a little bit later too. Um, yeah, Dogs of Chernobyl, track 4. Dogs of Chernobyl. I got excited about that track. I looked at the title and I thought, you know what, this is going to sound fucking cool. I didn't know what it was going to be about. It turns out it's a bit of a love song, like about lost love and things like that. A bit of a heartbreak song, which Dave's done plenty of times before. A bit disappointed though. It didn't sound as cool as what the title made it sound. Yeah. The solo was really good though. This is one of those solos. Yeah, yeah. exactly. They started with a really good first single, and then the Night Stalkers was definitely a fucking drop off. Mm, yeah, good point. Good point there, Brendan. Dave had lots to be angry about, and just didn't channel it enough. Yeah, I mean maybe he's channeling in other ways personally. I'm not sure, but it definitely seems like the the music didn't capture that anger and aggression that he used to have, or that he probably still has, but he just doesn't put into the music as much. Um, I think again, like I said, I think that's because he's trying too much to sound like Megadeth rather than to just make music from whatever he's feeling. Uh, I don't pretend to know the guy and be in his head, but that's definitely what it feels like from this end of on this side of the fence. Receiving the music. It's like he's trying to sound like his old stuff and rehash his old work, which it just doesn't translate. It's missing that passion. It's missing that fire, that feeling that comes from authentic art. Um, but yeah, the solo in Dogs of Chernobyl was a good one. I really enjoyed that. It was very soulful. It was very Marty Friedman esque. Kiko doing his best there, and I thought the solo in Dogs of Chernobyl was quite good. It made me feel something for the first time in the album. I felt something other than just dissatisfied and waiting for it to get good. That solo I enjoyed, but the rest of the song lackluster. Uh, yeah, I'm kind of flying through the songs, but there's not a lot to say about them honestly for the first half. The next one was what was the next song called? It was called Sacrifice. Sacrifice sounded like it was off Endgame, and I mean that in a good way. Uh, it was a solid song. Sacrifice was um, it's not a song that I needed to hear, as in it didn't change my life. It didn't make me feel super excited or anything like that, but it was good. It was one of those reasonable middle of the album songs, and I thought that's that's pretty good. I didn't mind it. It just lacked that extra 5-10% to make it the hit single, obviously. But yeah, it was a decent song. Decent song. Junkie was another one of those sort of middle of the album songs that I thought it was again it was good. Um, the solo was alright. The riffs were sick. The energy was there, but just not quite over the line. Yeah, I can't remember if you liked it exactly. It's one of those kind of the three songs in the middle there, Junkie, Killing Time, and that they kind of flowed together a little bit, and you're just like, oh, I've sort of tuned out from listening to this song, this song, this song, because they're not singles. They're just kind of middle of the album songs, which kind of blurred together a little bit, to be honest. Um, but Junkie did have some cool riffs. I did enjoy some of that. Yeah, Killing Time. Killing Time was a song on the album. That's all. That's probably all I have to say about that. Killing Time was a song on the album. Next song. Yeah, like I said, so with Megadeth, they usually start strong, come back, and head back up again. And that was typical of Megadeth, and I think they kind of did a similar thing here. The middle of the album was all right. Was all right. It was definitely not as strong as the last album. Endgame is a good album, Brendan. I agree. I enjoy Endgame. I spin it a lot. It's probably my second or third favorite Megadeth album, if I'm honest. In terms of frequent playability, I listen to it a lot of time. Um, and I don't think there's a bad song on Endgame. It's one of those albums that I can listen to from start to finish and enjoy the whole way through, much like Rust in Peace, which is my favorite Megadeth album. Uh, Even some of the really old stuff from the 80s, I enjoy those albums, but there's always one or two songs that I skip when I listen to it. Endgame's not like that for me. Endgame I listen to from cover to cover, and it sounds like you enjoy it too. And do you like Endgame, Dan? Yeah, you do. Cool. I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm glad to hear that. I thought that was a solid album too. Um, but yeah, so like I said, Megadeth tends to have a bit of a dip in the middle of their albums, and that was kind of the same here. The difference is it didn't start strong, so the dip it just felt lower than previous album dips, because the beginning wasn't as strong, so you didn't need a when you get to the middle of the album, you didn't need a break from the fucking hit single thrash metal songs like fucking killing you, and then you need a bit of a chill period in the middle. You didn't need that with this album because they didn't have that strong start. So you get to the middle and it's giving you the break, but you didn't need a break. You're like, no, I'm still yet to hear the good songs. I'm still yet to get excited. I've still got energy to burn, you know? It's kind of how I felt in the middle of this album. But that being said, this is where it starts to pick up. This is where it starts to pick up. Soldier On was the next song. I think we're up to track 7. Soldier On. Track 7 or 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, sorry. Oh, I've missed one. I've missed Psychopathy. Psychopathy was alright. What did you guys think of Psychopathy? I thought that was a reasonable song. Not too bad. Not too bad. But definitely, as I said, it was in that middle of the album group. Yeah, that was it. The 4 songs. So Junkie, Psychopathy, Killing Time, and Sacrifice all kind of were that bit of a lull, I suppose, in the album. The difference being, as I said, it didn't start as strong. So yeah, Soldier On that was one of their first singles. As I said, that was a solid track. I did enjoy Soldier On. It had some sick riffs, some awesome solos. Uh, the lyrics were started to make you feel something. What did you get there, Dan? Still sitting there going, "Come on, yeah, exactly." Because you're sitting there in the middle of the album. Like I said, you're waiting. They're giving you a break because they thought they've just punched you in the face with their first 3, and you need a bit of a chill period. But we hadn't had that punch in the face that they thought they were giving us. So I'm sitting there as well, and I was just like, "Where is it? Where's the pickup? Where's the pickup?" And Soldier On for me was where it started coming back up the hill. I don't know. What do you guys think of Soldier On, the single? Obviously, it was out early, so Brendan, you probably heard it. But yeah, as I said, I thought it had some good riffs. The lyrics were a lot better, and yeah, it was okay, Dan. It wasn't the best song on the album, but it was probably in the top 3 or 4. It just started to pick up and get in the right direction. Which leads me to the next one, which I think is pronounced Celebutante. Celebutante? Celebutant? I'm not sure. It's a French word. I'm not sure what it means. Uh, but I thought that was a good song too. Definitely, it took the vibe from Soldier On, uh, and it just kept that rolling. So I don't know what you guys thought of that, but I thought it had the chorus was pretty cool. It was one of those sort of catchy, hooky choruses. The riffs were solid, and it had some decent energy. It was one of those ones that I could sing along to. By the time I was listening to this album for the 3rd and 4th time, I started singing along to the chorus of this one. Not obviously at the top of my lungs, going like, "Oh my god, it's fucking amazing," but it was catchy enough for me to be like, "Yeah, okay, cool, I get where this is going," and I'm starting to feel something. Yeah, I thought it was an alright track. I thought it was an alright track. Again, it kind of had this endgamey kind of vibe to it. Yeah, no idea. Yeah, exactly. Celebutante, I think, is what he says because he sings it in the chorus, and I'm pretty sure it's celebutante. It's just hard to get a good grasp on the pronunciation of the word. Dave does like his French there. He's used it a few times. Uh, Mission to Mars. Yeah, Mission to Mars. Again, that was it was a long song. I don't think it needed to be. It was a decent song, and it sits at 5.5 minutes. I thought it could have been 3. Soldier On, We'll Be Back, your favorite singles. Yeah. Soldier On was good, Brendan. We'll Be Back, which is coming up. I haven't got there yet, but that was a good song too. They definitely gave me hope when I heard those singles. I was like, all right, this album could go somewhere. But yeah, Mission to Mars, I thought it was just too long. Like, it didn't need to be 5.5 minutes. It got to the middle of the song, and then they had that like break where they started doing there's like the speaking parts, and I thought the song could have ended there. But they sort of took it in a Rust in Peace Polaris direction, the title track of the Rust in Peace, where they had this, thrashy cool song at the beginning, and then there's like a second half of the song which is totally different. Megadeth's done it 100 times before. We've heard it plenty of times before. But they did that with Mission to Mars, and I thought it was interesting. I thought they were on the right track there. But if you'd cut the song off at that point, I wouldn't have been upset about it. I thought the first half was pretty good. Yeah, that's Mission to Mars. Again, it had one of those catchy sort of choruses. You sort of start singing along a little bit. But I suppose my point before about Megadeth trying to sound like old Megadeth these sort of songs, I didn't feel like they did that. I think these sorts of songs, they started just having a bit more fun with it, experimenting and trying some new things, and I thought they worked for them. I thought the second half of the album, generally, they sort of took the pressure off themselves and said, we don't need to sound like Rust in Peace. We don't need to sound like So Far So Good or Countdown or Euthanasia. We can just make music, and it'll sound like Megadeth because we're Megadeth, but it'll sound progressive and it'll sound like we're moving in the right direction. Um, okay, that's a fair point, Dan. Fair point, mate. But I feel like these sorts of songs, they started just taking the pressure off themselves and just making music for the sake of making music, and it sounded interesting. It sounded new. It sounded a bit fresh. I'm not saying it was amazing, but it sounded fresh. Uh, and yeah, so like, and I think that's the key. I think that's the key for bands like this, and for the fans to be open to it, or not. Like, if you want to just listen to the old stuff, listen to the old stuff. But I think as these bands, the big bands especially, start to age and start to feel differently, they're not 19 anymore. They're not fucking young, dumb. What's the saying? Young, dumb, and full of cum. They're not just angry, aggressive fucking 20-year-olds anymore. Like, they're 60. They're multi-millionaires. They're not going to have the same feelings they had when they were 19, 20 and broke and starving and trying to get to the next town to play the next gig. Like, we can't expect them to sound the same as that. And I think if they are true to themselves and they experiment with the sounds and their feelings and things like that and make music that's authentic to them where they are in their life right now, I think even if it may not be as good or may not speak to the same people, I think it will definitely have a lot more passion in it and a lot more authenticity, and people will respect that. Some people will, and some people just won't like it. Um, and I know these guys they're big businesses, they're worldwide businesses, so they have to do what they have to do. But as a fan, I would prefer to hear authentic, new, fresh things that are not as good compared to just trying to rehash the old stuff. Um, but yeah, so that leads me to "We'll Be Back." I think "We'll Be Back" was a good song. I think it was probably one of the better songs on the album. It definitely had like old Megadeth kind of vibes, but again, I felt like it was fresh. It was fresh and it was new, and I wouldn't be surprised if out of any of the songs on this album, "We'll Be Back" is the one that makes it into the live set list going forward. For the next 10 years or whatever, however long they continue to tour. Um, Probably one of the only songs off this album that would make it into the live set list post album launch. Obviously, when they launch a new album, they play a few songs off it, but I think a lot of them will fall by the wayside, and "We'll Be Back" might actually hang around. Obviously, Brendan, you said you enjoyed "We'll Be Back," so yeah, exactly. But I'm just disappointed that it took to track 12 to get a decent song. I think if they'd opened with "We'll Be Back" or put it near the beginning, it would have definitely would have kicked things off a bit differently. Yeah. And maybe they were putting it at the end for a bit of a statement, put it as the last track and say, "We'll be back." Potentially that's what they were trying to do, but I just feel like it's a strong song. They should have had it earlier in the album rather than leaving us to, like, not many people are going to make it to track 12 if the rest of them are not as good. Yeah. You had high hopes, yeah. Indeed. Indeed, Dan. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And we're up to, that's track 12. So that was the closing track, unless you got the special edition, which I did. And I've been listening to the cover songs. So there are two cover songs. One was a Dead Kennedys track, Police Truck, and the other one was a Sammy Hagar cover. Sammy Hagar, obviously from Van Halen and things like that. Planets on Fire, but actually featured Sammy Hagar on vocals. So I thought that was fun. I thought these two cover songs were really, really fun and really solid additions to the album. They could have got rid of some of the earlier tracks and put these cover songs in. I would have been much happy with that. Obviously, Dave likes his old punk. He's covered plenty of punk songs in the past. And putting a Dead Kennedys cover in, like, for me, that was like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm digging this. This is good energy. It's good. It sounds like Megadeth, but it's just it had more energy and passion in it. And I thought the same with the Sammy Hagar cover. It was a good song. It had fun. It had energy. Yeah, definitely get the special edition, mate. I'll be back in a sec, guys. Wait, just one sec. Yeah, we're back. Fair enough, Brendan. Fair enough, mate. Um, yeah, that's a solid, better after second listen. Yeah, yeah. As I said, guys, I've listened to it 3 times at this stage, and I thought by the third time I was starting to understand what they're trying to do. I'm definitely not in love with the album. But again, some people are loving it online. I've definitely seen a lot of positive reviews and a lot of good things people have to say about it. And I thought there were some solid points, as I said, some solid moments. But as I was saying before about uh, the fun aspect of it, the police truck, the Dead Kennedys cover, the Sammy Hagar cover, I thought that was the band again not trying to sound like old Megadeth, trying to target it and rehash old stuff. They're just like, let's just have some fun, play some cover songs, and just enjoy music. And it'll sound like Megadeth. It sounds like Megadeth. It sounds like the Dead Kennedys. It sounds like Sammy Hagar, but it also sounds like Megadeth. Um, just having fun with music, and I think that's one of the things that maybe I'm just projecting here, and I definitely will sort of uh, lead with that comment because I think that was one of the issues that I had with Wartooth was that it became, and I'm not saying we're at the level of Megadeth or anything like that, but it became like the band became a bit of a business, and then it constrains the art, and you have to appease fans, and you have to make a certain sound. You have to. It becomes less of an artistic freedom to create whatever it is you're feeling and what you need to create, and more of like a box that you have to stick within, some framework or a cage perhaps artistically. Um, I'm not saying I don't enjoy the business side of the band or that was the reason that Wartooth ended or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. I guess what I'm saying is that um, as an artist, to be able to express yourself authentically, you need to have some level of freedom to do that and to be constrained by a sound, especially the way the Big Four has been. They've been such massive bands, massive successes that their fans expect them to sound a certain way. Uh, it does constrain the artistic freedom a lot. If Megadeth had released a rock and roll album, I'm sure they would have been crucified, even though it might be more authentic to where they're at, and it might have sounded fucking awesome. Um, I've always said this, and I don't know what you guys think, but I'm definitely willing to stand up and say this that I think Saint Anger was a good album if somebody else had released it. If it wasn't Metallica that had released it, I think it would have been received a lot more positively. I think because it was Metallica, everyone is like, what the hell has Metallica become? This is not Metallica. We expect them to sound like Master of Puppets. We expect them to sound like And Justice for All, the Black Album, all that stuff. And here they come out sounding like this, new metal band. If Saint Anger was released by a different band, by a new metal band, I think a lot of people would have gone like, fuck, this is such a cool album. But it's because it had that name on it that we expected them to sound a certain way, and they came at it from this angle. And I think if Megadeth had released a rock and roll album type thing, in the vein of the Sammy Hagar cover, in the vein of even We'll Be Back, wasn't a classic Megadeth tune. Um, that sort of thing. If they'd just gone with their guts and their heart, it might have sounded different, and I think a lot of people would have gone, "Ugh, that's not Megadeth. What the fuck is this?" But it might have potentially made for some better songs. And I guess what I'm saying about the Water thing is just relating to that. So uh, we made Program Dichotomy. We were super happy with that. We started having conversations about what the next album was going to sound like and some new songs, things like that. And I thought I was feeling a lot more. We need to have some more rock and roll energy. We need to have some more fun with music rather than being so angry and serious all the time. I mean, when I wrote Program Dichotomy, I was quite angry and upset with the world and things like that. So there was a lot to be passionate about for that. But I definitely wasn't feeling that last year or this year. I haven't been feeling that like angry, like angsty, fuck the world kind of vibes. So because I'm not feeling that, I'm not going to be able to write another Program Dichotomy. Hence why we did the Back in the Game cover, and hence why we started doing those other thrash metal covers and things like that. And you got to be sort of, as I said, the sound has to evolve with the people. Um, Not saying Wartooth couldn't have done that. As I said, this is not a reason that we ended or anything like that. But it's just that kind of process that we were going through, discussing like why do we have to sound like, why do we have to make a version 2 of the previous album? Why do we have to sound like thrash metal from the 80s or anything like that? Um, it's just got to be like, you just got to be authentic to yourself, I think, as an artist. And I know there's a business element to music, and that's a big part of it too, and you can't just disregard that. I don't have the answers here. I'm just sort of speculating. It would be interesting to see a really big band release an album that's authentically them, but sounds very different to their previous works, um, and see how people receive it, and see if people receive it well. An example of that, actually, I was talking today with a mate. Kiss evolved a lot throughout the decades. I mean, they started back in like late '60s, and they were releasing albums up until the last decade, I think. Um, and none of them sound like the same. They all sound like Kiss, but they've definitely evolved their sound with the ages. Uh, Metallica is, I suppose, another example where they've evolved a lot and got criticized for it. Um, but potentially, that's the challenge of the being an artist, I suppose, is to be able to express yourself authentically and keep fans happy. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's possible, or if it is, I'm not sure how to do it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just sort of rambling a little bit here, but I think as an artist, from my perspective, I would prefer to just make music that I like, that I'm feeling, that is authentically me. And if people like it, awesome. And if people don't like it, sorry. Like the stuff you did like is already there. It's on a CD. It's on a vinyl. It's on streaming services. Go listen to it. You don't have to like my new shit. If you like the old shit, just go listen to the old shit. Like it's there. Nobody's taking it away from you. Nobody's saying you can't listen to it anymore. It's not available anymore. If you like the old shit, go listen to the old shit. If you want to hear something new, it's going to be new, which means it's going to be fresh, which means you may not like it. So kind of deal with that. And I try to take that approach as a fan too. Listening to bands, new stuff. If I didn't listen to this album wanting to hear Rust in Peace again. I listened to this album to see where is Megadeth now. What's bothering them now? Where's their life at? How are they feeling now? And what I got was a Megadeth cover band trying to sound like Rust in Peace 2.0, Endgame 2.0. So far, so good. So what? 2.0, Countdown 2.0, Euthanasia 2.0. That's what I got, and I just thought I felt more cheated by that. The fact that they were trying to be Megadeth too much than I did uh, by the lack of amazing songs. Hmm. That being said, I think generally, they started to include guests on this album, the Ice-T, Sammy Hagar, that sort of thing. And they did. I don't know if you guys saw a little while ago. They did a "Wake Up Dead" cover with Randy from Lamb of God, uh, which I thought was fucking awesome. Or potentially that was Dave with Lamb of God rather than Randy with Megadeth. I can't recall. Just give me a second. I'm gonna look that up. Um, I thought that was sick. I thought that was a really interesting collaboration. Yeah, he failed in trying. Exactly, Dan. They tried to sound like old Megadeth, and it just didn't get there. It was lackluster at best. Um, is exactly how I felt. Exactly how I felt. Okay, so sorry. The Wake Up Dead was Lamb of God featuring Dave Mustaine. That's my bad. But what I do like about this kind of approach to heavy metal is it's a lot more creative. It's a lot more collaborative. Sorry. Um, and bands are, we're gonna have this band and we're gonna put this singer in it. We're gonna have this band and this guy's gonna do a guitar solo from another band. It breaks down that uh, I'm in this band and this band is my identity, and I'm in this band and this is my identity, and we're competition, we're enemies. It breaks that down, and it's just like, hey, let's just have fun with the music. Let's swap some members around. This singer play on a song with these guys. This drummer play in this band for a little bit. It I think the fans win the most out of that. I think the fans get to hear different sounds from the bands they love already and different artists they love. Like, as a fan, none of us just listen to one band all the time. We're not like Team Megadeth and we don't listen to anything else. We don't listen to Metallica. We don't listen to new metal. I don't know. You know, we're not sitting there going like, this is my band and this is all that I listen to. Most fans listen to a variety of music, certainly a variety of metal. Um, so you have like I like this singer, I like this guitarist, I like this drummer, I like this band sound, I like that band sound. This song, I'm sure as a fan, you guys have listened to songs and you're going, this song would be really cool if this guy sang on it, or this song needs this guy on the drums. Something, and obviously Gene Hogan has been like a band slut, so he's been in tons of bands, and so you can always sort of say like, oh yeah, this sounds better with Gene Hogan. Like Testament, when they had Gene Hogan, it sounded better than the previous drummer. Things like that. Sorry. Um, I think it's interesting when bands swap members and do collaborations with each other, and you have a few interests indeed, Dan. um, as I said, I think the fans win out of that, but also the musicians would get to have more fun. I'm speculating here, but I would suggest that the musicians getting to collaborate with each other would have more fun, and they're open to new approaches and sharing techniques, styles, and just being able to collaborate with each other creates an environment where they're more creative and more experimental rather than being stuck in that pattern of we're Megadeth, we need to sound like Megadeth. We're Slayer, we need to sound like Slayer. We're Gojira, we need to sound like Gojira. Whatever it is. Once you break down those barriers of like this is the band's identity and we need to fit within this box, you can have more fun with it. You can be more experimental, and we'll get a lot more creativity and a lot more newer, fresher songs. I think in the industry, if bands are taking that sort of approach. Country music did it through the 90s and 2000s. Hip hop and R&B has been doing it for years. Pop music definitely swaps and shares and collaborates a lot across the board. Even rock and roll has done it plenty of times. I would be really interested to see thrash metal do that, and I think going forward, I think that's how we can create new sounds, new subgenres of heavy metal, and certainly new, fresher songs by just allowing that cross collaboration instead of everyone sticking to their little boxes and their teams. Um, yeah, I mean that again. This is my opinion, and it's definitely something that I would like to personally experiment with. Obviously, I'm going to be writing my own songs going forward, and I've been working on a few of them. Um, but I would like to collaborate. I'd like to take a more collaborative approach to songwriting, where let's just make a song, a single, with these guys, and then let's make a single with some other people, and then let's just experimenting and playing around with different sounds with different people and different subgenres, mixing them all together, seeing what we come up with. Some of them would be great, some of them suck, I'm sure. Um, but it just opens your mind and opens the sound. It opens heavy metal to be more experimental and takes away that sort of old-fashioned gatekeepy, stick it in the box and stay in the box kind of approach. And potentially you could experiment even deeper than that, and you could start including musicians from other genres into heavy metal as well. I'm sure it's been done once or twice, but I would like to see that sort of continue more, especially the way the world is going. Obviously, music consumption has become more singles focused. Um, the internet has allowed for collaboration across the world, like instantaneously, things like that. So the way the world is evolving and the way that the music consumption is evolving, I think that there's definitely opportunities there for bands to just release singles collaborating with other people rather than sticking to the old format of this is an album with my four guys and this is your album with your four guys. It's I think it definitely would create a lot more excitement um, and freshness to heavy metal going forward. So that's my 2 cents. And I'd like to see that personally. As I said, I'd like to see it, and I've always been a believer that you should always be the change you want to see in the world. So that's what I'm going to be doing as well. This is kind of not an announcement per se, but just letting you guys know that are interested in what I'm working on, that I will be looking to collaborate in the future. And if there's any bands that are watching this or any other musos that are watching this and they want to collaborate with me, let me know, because I'm always keen to throw down some different sort of vocals or guitar work on, or collaborate with different sounds and different genres. I'm always up for that and seeing what we can do, even if it's not necessarily commercially successful. I think this is the way of the future of heavy metal and music in general. That collaborative, free-flowing approach to making singles, and just at the end of the day, it comes down to one word, and that word is fun. Back in the day, metal was fun, music was fun, and it still is. Obviously, as a fan, you go to shows, you have fun, you listen to music, and you have fun. But I think the bands have lost that. Especially a lot of the older bands, they've lost that fun element, and it's become a job, a career, a business, a box, a cubicle, so to speak, that they have to sit in and do their work the label's expecting another album that sounds the same 3 years later. And it's like, I don't know, I just don't think that works for artists necessarily. Again, this is my 2 cents. I'm not sure what you guys think of that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of those points that I've just made there. Would you guys like to see some collaborations? Who would you like to see collaborate? Is there a particular singer or guitarist or a musician or whatever that you think you'd love to hear collaborate with a different band. I didn't know I needed to hear that Wake Up Dead song, cover song by Lamb of God with Dave on vocals. I didn't know I needed to hear that until I heard it, and then I was like, oh, that's fucking good. I really dig it. I absolutely loved it. Hmm. What have you got there, Brendan? So didn't release an awesome single and then not put it on the album like Created it with 666. Yeah. Yeah. Um, that's always an interesting approach, isn't it, when bands release a single that they don't include on the next album? Thrash Attack. Certainly we've done that. Funk Thrash from Mordred. I'm gonna have to check out this Mordred band, man. I don't know them, but Funk Thrash sounds interesting. Obviously, Havoc did something similar with Conformicide. You know, they got some different kind of bass guitar, a bit more slappity funk bass guitar on Conformicide, and some of those songs were really cool, and that experimentation paid off. And some of the songs I thought were a bit lackluster. It didn't quite work, but I guess that's the price of experimentation. You know, sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. But you got to be open to it. You got to be creative enough to, brave enough to try, rather than just sticking with the safe formula of this is how we write music and we're just going to do the same thing over and over again as a band, you know. Obviously, I'm talking quite conceptually and quite large scale, you know, just about music in general, not just specific bands or not just specifically Megadeth with this album. You know, I think generally musicians need to be brave enough to try new things and have it not work out sometimes. You know, that's what happens, but that's how we progress. That's how we evolve. We have to fail. We have to be willing to fail at least in order to succeed. Hmm. I'm definitely gonna check out Mordred though, Brendan. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm gonna look them up this week. Uh, yeah. So as I said, overall Megadeth album, definitely not in their top five. Bit lackluster. But there were some moments, as I said, there were some good moments. Some of the better points, I said, I liked the solo in Dogs of Chernobyl. I liked We'll Be Back. I liked Soldier On. I liked the covers. Celebutante and Mission to Mars, I thought had some good choruses. But overall, I mean, I'd be I'd be hard pressed to give it even 3 stars out of 5. I think it's more like a 2.5 stars as an album. If I had to give it a star rating, what do you guys think out of 5? Where would you put it? Where would you put it? What was your rating out of 5 for this Megadeth album? I know, Brendan, you haven't listened to the whole thing, and I don't want to disappoint you either, Brendan. I want you to approach it with an open mind. I think you're very brave for even tuning in tonight to listen to this review before hearing the album. When you do listen to it, man, please do approach it with an open mind and open ears. And if you enjoy it or if you don't, either way, I'd love to hear what you think. Just shoot me a message or something, man, or comment on the video after it goes up on YouTube and you listen to the song. Just put a comment in and let me know what you think, man. Because uh, like I said, these are just my opinions. You know, this is what I thought of the album, and I've certainly been wrong in the past. And I've certainly even there's been albums when I've listened to them and I hated them, and then I listen to them again 5 years later and I love it. it. Maybe I'm in a different place, you know. Maybe I'm in a place right now where I'm not enjoying this album, but in 5 years' time I might listen to it again and be like, you know what, that was pretty cool. I'm not sure. You know, we've always got to be open to these sorts of things, and that's definitely how I approach life. Um, Dan said he put it in their top 10, 2 out of 5. Yeah, no, I'm definitely keen to hear your 2 cents, Brendan. Um, yeah, I mean that's how it is. Would you guys go see Megadeth? Would you go see Megadeth again, Dan, when they tour here next? Obviously they'll be playing a couple of songs off this album, I'm sure. Obviously we want to hear their old classics. You know, they're always going to play Holy Wars. They're always going to play like Hangar 18, Symphony of Destruction, etc., etc. But if they're going to be playing a few of these new songs on their tour, would you go see them? Would you enjoy it? That's an interesting point. I think I would. I think I would definitely go and see them again. Megadeth's always good live. I've seen them probably 4 times, 5 times maybe. I can't remember exactly, 4 or 5. Uh, wait, I think it might be 5. Putting in with Super Collider risk. Okay. Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Brennan would definitely go see him. Yeah. Yeah. Of course you go see him. Fuck yeah, Dan. Okay, see, Super Collider I thought was much worse, and same with Risk. I think I would put those albums below this one. I thought this one was definitely not in their worst three or four albums. Uh, yeah, but that's so. This is my opinions on Megadeth, the Sick, the Dying, and the Dead. Interesting title, really cool artwork, I must say. I really enjoyed the artwork. I enjoyed the artwork of Dystopia as well, though. We should comment about a few of those other things. So they had Steve DiGiorgio on bass from Testament. I don't know if he's joining the band or if they are. Yeah, they are bad albums, huh? I don't know if Steve DiGiorgio is joining the band or if he was just filling in for the album and some of their touring. It'd be interesting to see if he does join, whether he contributes creatively to the next one. Um, I have hopes. I have hopes for Megadeth. The second half of this album, I don't know what order they wrote the songs in, obviously, but the second half, listening to the album, sounds like they're heading in the right direction. And if they can be slightly more authentic to themselves in the future, and potentially if they want to make a rock and roll album, make a rock and roll album, you know? If they want to just take the angry thrash metal that they used to make really well, leave that in the past, and make something new for the next disc, I would absolutely be keen on hearing that, you know? And I'd be really keen to see where they go. I think Dave and the Megadeth, obviously they have multi-million-dollar production crews, etc., etc. So they will be able to sound massive no matter what they do. But I think if they sort of come at the next album with a little bit more rock and roll, or just at least a lot more authenticity to the lyrics and the feelings they put into their riffs, I think Megadeth could still make another really really great masterpiece album. I think they've still got it in them, um, but not if they keep looking backwards. Mm. And I think that's true for a lot of bands. You know, Slayer had to end. Slayer had to end because they were circling themselves. They were the dog eating the snake eating their own tail. Dog chasing its own tail is what I was trying to say. They were just going around and around in circles. You know, like we need to make Rain of Blood again. We need to just repeat ourselves over and over again. And there's only so many times you can do that, and it sounds good and it sounds fresh. Uh, I think that's where Slayer got to, and Tom knew it for a long time, and the business became bigger than the band. The business became bigger than the creative, the artistry, and ultimately that kills the artist. You know, it doesn't necessarily kill the business side of the band. It doesn't kill the merch. It doesn't kill the ticket sales, but it definitely kills the artist. Uh, and I think Megadeth needs to be wary of that. Is what I would say. And hopefully they don't do that. Hopefully they don't turn into that circle of trying to recreate themselves too much. They have done a little bit in the past over the last 10, 15 years, but I think they've released Endgame. Endgame was solid and it was fresh. It was a new Megadeth, and I think they still have another one of those kinds of albums in them in the future, as long as they look forward and embrace that and not try and sound like their old stuff. That's my 2 cents. Hmm. That being said, guys, I think this will be a good point to sort of wrap up the stream. Uh, Thanks again, Jordan. I feel like you're just spamming me at the moment. That's like the third time I sent the message. But yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate the follow. I really do. Thank you for the follow, Jordan. Growing my Twitch subscribers. I don't know what we're up to. I don't have my usual overlays on tonight with the counter and stuff in the corner. That side. Where are we at over here? I think we're at 9. But appreciate the follows, Jordan. Thank you. Uh, I do need some graphic design, so I'll definitely talk to you about that. But yeah, I just don't. Please don't keep spamming me. I mean, it's not fun for anyone. But yeah, as I said, so that might be a good point to wrap up, guys. I hope this has given you some insight, maybe to Brendan especially, who hasn't listened to the album. If you're watching and you haven't listened to any of the tracks of the album, or you started listening to it and you thought, this sucks, I'm just gonna stop. Um, there's hope for the second half, so please do stick around and give it another listen, maybe give it another try. And for those that have listened to it, I appreciate your opinions, Dan, for example, and anybody else that's watching. Feel free to comment after the live stream and let me know what you thought about this album.
I'm happy to keep chatting in the comments. And yeah, otherwise, I'm going to enjoy my week up in Brisbane. I will be doing a stream on Thursday. I'll be doing an acoustic stream, playing some acoustic bangers. Uh, and then I'm back in Melbourne next week for a stream. So yeah, as always, guys, appreciate your time. Appreciate you listening to the Commander Ando show. And yeah, hope have a good week. Look after yourselves. Look after each other. Stay metal. And I'm keen to see you on Thursday when we talk about new releases and things like that. So um, yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it, Dan. We've lowered Brendan's expectations so much that when he listens to it, he's going to be like, "What are they talking about? This is actually pretty good." It's all psychological. See, yeah. Lower the expectations, pleasantly surprised. Raise the expectations, bitterly disappointed. That's it. That's it, man. It's all about comparison, right? Sleight of hand, context, all those things. That's the magician's tricks, right? But yeah, no, I hope you do enjoy it, Brendan, and do let me know. Do let me know what you think. Otherwise, guys, as I said, have a good week.